Artificial intelligence is forcing us to address some fundamental questions, not the least of which is, what does it actually even mean to be human in a world where it feels like intelligence may not be uniquely ours anymore? Work, leadership, and even creativity are all being challenged simultaneously. Many mundane tasks are being automated. Industries continue to reorganize around large amounts of AI-analyzed data, and even digital creators are learning to build, innovate, and monetize with artificial intelligence as their collaborator. It's an interesting time to be alive, I think. This episode of ATP is trying to determine, how do we define human talent, or redefine it, in the age of artificial intelligence? Can AI quietly eliminate the costs of most, many, all manual processes? Let's find out. And if AI lowers the barriers to being creative, whatever that really means anymore, can it help turn these creative ideas into sustainable businesses? To explore these questions and more, the Asia Tech podcast is joined by Kristen Lim, the founder and CEO of Rockrose Executive Search, Francis Peña, portfolio GM for human resources and payroll products for Sprout Solutions, and Jeevika Makani, a co-founder and CEO at Top Road. Thank you all so much for joining us today, literally from all over the world. I hadn't even thought about this. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. How is everybody?
Good to be here.
Okay, this is awesome. Kristen, I'm going to start with you, but I really want everyone to think about this, and you can jump in whenever you want. If AI is really transforming how we work, lead, and be creative, how should we redefine or rethink about human talent and value in a world where AI seems to be ascending?
Thanks, Michael. So, in my opinion, I believe now with AI, it kind of level the playing field for a lot of people because, information will be at our fingertips. So what used to be a differentiator, which is our IQ, is no longer a differentiator. So I think in this era of AI, we need to think more creatively. We need to put in more hard work in terms of thinking so that we can differentiate ourselves from every other people. Because nowadays, most people is going to just turn on their ChatGPT, Gemini, or their favorite AI apps, and they're just going to put in the question and they get the answers. And these answers are probably the same answers that anyone could get on every single AI. So I think human is still quite unique, but we need to do something different. We can't just rely on AI for output these days. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, it's a good question. Our team has kind of undergone something like we've wrestled with that question. End of the day, AI is a tool. The same way that, there was a shift from acoustic guitars to electric guitars before. And you have to figure out how you change your skills to meet or match basically the new tools that are available. So it's basically as the tool user, if you don't know how to use the tool properly, it's garbage in, garbage out, right? So yeah, I think AI in some sense, actually this is a quote from our chief product officer. He mentioned that in some ways AI actually makes us much more human, just because the innately human things become much more pronounced as more and more people utilize the same tools, right? So it's a paintbrush, and creativity will always remain with the painter.
I completely agree with Francis in terms of the opportunities for us to become more human and linked to creativity. I think the other thing that's missing is relationships, like how much of business is actually relationship based. And I don't think AI is coming for that at all. It actually gives us more time to think about, what does my customer actually want? What are maybe the unsaid things that are stopping this deal? So I still think there's plenty of work for us to do, even in the age of AI.
I want to follow up with you because Jeevika and actually Francis, you all said something super interesting, but something that I think about a lot, right? In other words, if I'm not a great horseback rider, but it's like 1875, and the guy who lives next to me is way better at riding the horse than I am, he's going to be better at delivering stuff to the next town. But once a car comes, as long as we both learn how to drive, his edge as a horseback rider completely goes away. Like, I don't think this is a new thing at all, right? And I think about this a lot. But in the world, and you all mentioned this, but let's dig a little bit deeper, right? If intelligence can be both human and artificial, what are these uniquely human things? Because I agree with you. I love, people ask me all the time, are you nervous about podcasts that are generated naturally, generated using AI, is that going to destroy your business? And I'm like, bring it on, because it makes me more human. And that human connection, I think, is really important. But what are these human capabilities that we have? And I want to start with you, Jeevika, that will remain the most valuable when you think about it. You brought this up as well.
Yeah, I mean, as Kristen was mentioning earlier, we can always get answers at our fingertips now. But the difference is that a good answer? So I think the ability for humans to like critically think and like, let's remind ourselves, like, how are these AI models coming up with answers? It has been trained on data either synthetically created, that's becoming more and more of an issue, or that humans have done. So like, there is so much space to have like, of all the different answers that I'm getting, is this actually appropriate? Is it right? Like, you can ask ChatGPT for your marketing strategy. Do you trust it? That's the insights that you need to have about your business and your customers and the marketing landscape. Like, that's not going away anytime soon. So
what Jeevika said about the marketing strategy coming from ChatGPT, that made me chuckle.
It made me chuckle.
Yeah, so the uniquely human thing. So I'm gonna answer from like our specific context here at Sprout. So one of the things that we've been doing over the past, say, 12 months is building AI tools and AI capabilities within our system. So we provide HR and payroll tools to companies, right? We've been asked several times by HR people. So if you guys are adding in chatbots within your HR dashboard, right? What makes HR human in that case? Well, when you look at the context of an HR administrator, right? Especially in the Philippines, where payroll is such a headache for everybody. There are times wherein your HR admin ends up basically being, it's not a repetitive task, right? Being an HR admin, you don't do things very manually. It's brain work, right? It's white collar. It's very brain intensive. But when you have, let's say, 1,000 employees, and all those, let's say, half of the 1,000 employees start asking the same question, then being an HR admin becomes quite repetitive, right? So when AI comes in, AI is basically that layer that helps the HR admin now make that repetitive thing go away. Now then, we've been asked, okay, if that's the case, then what makes me as an HR admin much more human? Well, we told them straight up, well, you, rather than waiting for your employee to reach out to you and ask about problems of payroll, that gives you, HR admin, much more time, much more opportunity to be more authentic and go to your employees and ask, how are you? Right? It doesn't become just about payroll problems now. It becomes, hey, what's up? Like, how was your weekend? How are you going? How's work? Are you fitting in better? So AI, yeah, there are things that it can do. It can replace, quote unquote, some of the things that an HR administrator can do. But at the end of the day, it's those repetitive, robotic, dare I say, robotic things that ends up the HR admin ends up doing, that it removes. And once that's removed, that HR admin is now put in a situation where that he or she can actually be very human, very authentic, very candid, very spontaneous, and ask, "What's up? Right? How are your kids? How's your mom? I heard your mom's sick." So I mean, it's very contextual in that case. At least the answer is, but that's the way we see things, and that's actually what pushes us to develop much more tools to remove those repetitive, those menial things.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I want to share a story with all of you, and feel free to comment on it. But like when I was sitting on an execution trading desk, executing trades like literally in multiple markets at the same time in the stock market, once we put algorithms out there that were able to automate the trading, in a way, it made my relationship with my customers way more personal in the same way that you are suggesting, because I had so much more time to talk to them. But funny things would happen. And let me just share two of them with you, and then we'll get back to our framework, because I just think you'll find it funny. But before the algos are out there, the execution trader would always take a bunch of flack for, why are you so stupid? Why are you missing my benchmark? Why can't you do better at this? Right? You could be automated away. And then once we automated the task, I think Jeevika is going to love this, but once we automated the tasks and put algos in, they'd be like, why didn't you interrupt the algorithm? Again, it's why are you so stupid and didn't fix the algo? Anyway, so there was no winning even for losing. I'm really curious about And I think Kristen said this. I can't remember, but I think Kristen said this, that like if everybody's using the same tools, then the answers are always going to be the same. But do you think that it really good, like, is there a way that AI will really narrow the gap between like high skilled or highly intelligent people and low skilled or lowly intelligent people in work? Like, is that really going to happen? And do you see that like playing out in the work that you do? Do you know what I mean? Where like when people apply for a job, you still have to have some kind of human element in there. Where does AI fit in there?
To answer your question, Michael, I think it will not narrow the gap. I think it will widen the gap.
Yeah, so do I. But tell me why.
People who know how to use AI to enhance their own capabilities will use it more effectively, and they will be a lot better than others that just use it to maybe just reduce the workload, efficiency, basically lazy thinking. People who are not putting time into thinking, the answers or their output will be very generic. So I think it will widen the gap, and people who use it more effectively, they can become smarter, and they have the wisdom as well from all the hard work they put in over the years. So they can actually use AI to make their work better. That's what I think. And back to your question, I think what humans still have is really, like, like for example, empathy, emotional intelligence. That's something AI cannot replace. So if you have a bad day, you need a human to console you, and that deepen the bond. That also help to create better teamwork, better output, a much stronger result. So I think that's what humans are born to do. So we should just let machine do what they are good at, and focus on what human should be doing instead. So yeah, I mean, I concur with Jeevika and Francis. AI can remove a lot of repetitive tasks, but things that humans are supposed to do, building relationships, being there for someone, and maybe even things around, ethical kind of decision making. These are things that humans should do, because I don't trust an AI to do that for me.
Am I the only one that's insulted when I feel like they're trying to make the machine be empathetic?
Oh, it's funny you say that. My husband takes great offense when I use ChatGPT voice mode, and it will chuckle sometimes. And so he finds that very triggering, but I'm like, I'm here for it.
No.
It makes...
I don't find it triggering, but I just find it insulting that it's a lowest common denominator thing. And I think this is kind of what Kristen was talking about, right? And I think Francis also noted this too. It's like this lowest common denominator. They're like, if everybody's going to be at the same level of intelligence, which I don't think is going to happen, then let's kind of coddle them or trick them into believing that this machine is real. And I think at some level, it's kind of insulting. Sorry, you were saying?
But do you know what? I think it's like, if we look at like sort of my grandparents' generation, when you see them forwarding things on WhatsApp that aren't true. And I think it was something about having to learn that, hey, just because something's written, it has not been gone through that editorial process. It doesn't mean it's true. And so I think younger generations are like, hey, like, just because it's in like written word, that doesn't mean we should trust it. And I think that's just what we need to start learning about AI as well. And like, yeah, just because it is chuckling, that doesn't mean this is a sentient being. So I do think we need to keep in mind that we are, using digital products. I do think that the rise of ChatGPT and how intuitively and quickly it grew means that we do have a desire to interact with software that is less clunky and less cumbersome. And if it gets us information quickly, like, is that really such a bad thing? The other thing I just want to add in is that, like, let's not get too nostalgic about like the grunt work that AI is being used for right now. Like, what we're doing is talking about like the report that took you like a whole day to put together and back and forth now can be done more efficiently. That's fine. And it's the same way, like, does anyone wish that we had to do mental maths and wish that we didn't have calculators? No, right? So I think that we will learn to do new and more interesting work, and it's okay to leave some of that grunt work behind.
So can we make the point here, and I want to throw this at everybody. You can answer in any order that you want, but you just reminded me of something. We are literally like in the first inning of this general dissemination of artificial intelligence and large language models. It feels like it's been here forever. And I think part of this is we live in a little bit of a tech bubble, all of us, right? Because whether you're in Singapore, in the Philippines, or in Sydney, right now you're in California, but we live in this like conversational tech bubble. But do we think that over time people will be like, yeah, that's not true? people will just get used to it in the same way, like if you're standing in a group of your friends and one of your buddies goes like, Meryl Streep was not in that movie. And you're like, that's not true. You're just making that up. Do you know what I mean? So it's just so early. And maybe we're trying to make it feel like it's been out there for 25 years, but it's really only been out there for most people for like 2. Jeevika, I'm really curious. Can you talk about like where AI fits into what you're doing at Top Road?
Yeah, so with at Top Road, we help our clients to monetize custom chatbots in the OpenAI ecosystem. And so that could be direct monetization. So they might use our product to add a subscription paywall to their custom chatbot, or it could be indirect monetization. So they're using their custom chatbot as lead generation. So we can help them collect those user email addresses so that they can retarget them to upsell them the actual product. All of this to say is like the custom part of custom chatbots is the product, the AI is the same. The thing that people are paying for is my client's expertise, their knowledge, that's been packaged up. And so if you've ever had this experience where you're like, oh, it's fun asking ChatGPT something and it answered very quickly, but unfortunately it's just false. What we're kind of in this world and we're coming together, and why I have so much still confidence that humans aren't being like, automated away is like, the end user is paying for my client's intelligence, for their knowledge. It's now packaged up in a more user-friendly chatbot interface, but the real value is that underlying knowledge base. That's what differentiates my clients' kinds of products that can defend a subscription paywall and just asking ChatGPT.
But how do you find it in the creative space for people that are not used to being sort of technologists? Are you seeing some kind of blurring line? And this is for you too, Francis, and actually for you too as well, Kristen. Are you seeing a blurring line between people thinking, like, I don't know how to use all these tools, and some people just jumping in and being, I'm way better at this, but particularly in the creative space, right, where they've spent their whole lives being way less technologically focused? Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a real democratizing moment. So if you were a content creator, which is our primary client base, previously you were really quite limited to selling sort of like physical products, right? You might have a partnership with the brand. If you wanted to build your own digital products, your own app, you either had to become super, super famous and like be able to like have enough funds to hire a developer so that you could have your own, fitness app, whatever it might be. It just wasn't possible for you to even offer digital kind of like products. And now what we're seeing is like, because they're like, hey, like I have the audience, right? I know what they want. I know what's interesting them. I know the problems they have. So they can actually take what their kind of end user distribution, they can take their consumer insights and package that into like digital products that's useful. And I think that's really wonderful that we don't have this like huge barrier where like you have to spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get an app out. And so what we're finding, and admittedly, like we're working with a lot of early adopters, is like creators are amazing at being hustlers and like embracing new technology. And so I think that those are the types of people who are going to win. So who they're asking, what can AI do for me? How can that help me generate more income in different ways? Because obviously the other side of that is like, if you're going to be someone who's passive, the dark side of what's happening with AI with content creation is like, well, now with Sora 2, like, is there any point putting out content because it can just be generated artificially? So there are some people who are going to be left behind, but I find that generally speaking, the creator economy have always been good at understanding new platforms and technologies and figuring out what works. So I think the creator economy will do quite well out of the AI revolution.
Got it. Francis, what do you think about it? Because Jeevika mentioned this word democratization, right? This was actually one of the things that I wanted to talk about too. I do think that, and again, getting back to something that Kristen said earlier, that there is going to be this gap, right? People who know how to use it really well are really going to accelerate, and I think it's the same thing for companies too. But if you go back and you look at like the 90s, the early 2000s, and even to 2010s, big companies had a huge advantage because they could afford to spend money on massive new technology implementations. But is AI now making it so that SMEs and even smaller companies can now use some of this technology in a way that they couldn't before? Are you seeing that as well?
In our case, we actually want to provide tools to a wider audience. We're not restricting our AI tools to larger companies just because quote unquote they know how to use it better. I think a lot of the learning is really people will learn it because it's there, right? People will, as soon as they understand there's great utility for their context, even if they're a small company, then the more value it adds, the more utility it has, the more people will be much more game to experiment. I mean, personally, I wouldn't say I was an early adopter of AI, but the more I used it, the more I saw, hey, this thing's pretty cool. It allows me to. I mean, I like brainstorming with people just because I like throwing ideas around, but it's not always the case that you can have somebody there. But like when you have an AI tool with pretty much a lot of context, the same context that you need, that's kind of the next best thing, right? And again, that's a habit you build. In whether you're an SME, a smaller company, or a larger company, if you don't understand how to utilize the value that AI brings in within your context, you still won't be able to really milk the best out of it. So in our case, a lot of our tools we provide it for free to our end users, right? Not limiting it to the HR admin, but allowing everybody to have access to it, whether this person has already a paid subscription to ChatGPT or it's their first time to actually interface with AI on a web tool, right? The objective is we want them to use it. We want them to see the value.
Yeah.
We continuously push value through campaigns that we do with our end users, and we're seeing pretty good usage across the board. So what's critical is really being able to push that value to somebody within that like smaller company context or larger company context. End of the day, utilities, what's gonna push people to use it.
Kristen, where does it fit into your business, specifically into Rock Rose?
I actually feel that AI is great for SMEs, entrepreneurs, creators. It's the best time for us actually because now I feel that bigger organization, because there's so many red tape, so many regulations, it will take time for them to evolve. And for entrepreneurs, for startup companies, creators, I think it's great news. It can supercharge our productivity, our output, and we have the same tool as the bigger companies have. We don't need to hire a team of developers to build stuff for us. We actually have these tools already. So I think it's a good time to be, an entrepreneur or a creator or like what Jeevika is doing right now, because we have the technology at our disposal. So that's what I felt about yeah, your previous question.
If I could just riff on that, so a specific example. So we're a small startup. Like we don't have budget to have a data science team, and a very simple AI tool that we're using is a SQL assistant. So I can, in natural language, ask the information that I want that's not in a standardized dashboard, and it's at my fingertips. Otherwise, the luxury of having your own data science team is reserved for much larger companies. So yeah, I completely agree with Kristen. It's actually a really great time for smaller companies to be able to compete against larger organizations because AI really helps our productivity.
So it's a really good point. But can I ask you this? As you get bigger and become more successful, I'm confident you will. I'm on your side right here. But when you do, will you then build a data analytics team, and then will they use the AI tools to just make themselves more productive, or will you just not have a data analytics team over time?
My hot take is I think we won't have data analytics teams.
That's a hot take. I like it.
And do you know why it is? So like a previous startup I worked for before I started my company, the CEO just had a view that we should all know how to use SQL. And so I was in an operations team, and I was so used to being in companies where there is a data science team, and I would be able to say, hey, I want this information, and I'd pull it. And so in that world, I had to like kind of learn this new language just to get the information I needed to lead my team. And at the time I was like, oh gosh, learning this on the job is so painful, but it made me a better leader because I could just ask a question. There was no like deferment of like me having, how do I like make this decision walking into a meeting and like getting an answer like 5 days later. And so I just think the closer that business people can be to their operational data and their metrics, the better. And so I actually don't think like how we have data analysis as a separate team is actually the best way of doing business at all.
So I agree with you, Jeevika. And to answer your previous question, Michael, I think now as an entrepreneur myself, so for the context of Rock Rose, we don't need a huge team. So I can be the person doing sales, operations, marketing, finance, and everything. So I think that's the opportunity for most of us moving ahead. Just like Jeevika, you don't need a data science team. I think in the future, we don't need that many humans. We probably just need more AI agents in our workforce.
Yeah, I was going to say, I love the fact that Jeevika has a hot take on this. I completely agree. As leadership, you always have to know how to use like the full scope of tools. Otherwise, how can you possibly lead people that don't know how to use them? But I want to make an analogy because I think it's actually really important. When I was sitting on the trading desk, when I first started trading, this is a long time ago, most of the guys and the gals that were trading didn't know how to use technology at all. And they literally had to do what you were talking about. Not go ask the data science team, but they had to like go ask the tech team to fix this bug or fix that thing or help me do this trade kind of thing. And at the end of the day, the trading desks and trading leadership figured out, let's just hire a bunch of computer scientists from MIT, from Carnegie Mellon, from Berkeley, from Stanford, from wherever, and have them be traders as well. Because then they disintermediate the necessity to have this massive bloated IT department that's writing trading programs when they know nothing about trading. Who else on here does not want to be nostalgic about grunt work? This was something that Jeevika also said. So here's another question, and let's start with you actually, Francis. How should leadership effectively think about translating business objectives, just like what Jeevika was talking about, into technology buildouts?
Wow, okay. Yeah, so in my case, that's something I kind of had to learn the hard way. Uh, it's in my previous experience, I was kind of thrown in the deep end. So how do you translate business outcomes for a technical team to understand? Well, in my experience, at least moving to the granular level of trying to be the product manager for this platform we're building, it's about going to well, it's about storytelling basically, right? It's a concept that it's complex, right? I understand it a certain way, and the engineers are gonna understand it a certain way. So in my case, I had to learn how to look at analogies, to look at stories, and build it around the stories that both of us understand. And then once that story is conveyed, then we're closer to understanding where we want to go with the business outcome and how they're gonna basically develop, right? Develop the product, develop the platform. Um, so I'd say that's kind of a very human way of approaching it. Nowadays, our team, when we want to translate something or at least show the development team something that we want to build, we as the product team can actually go out and develop a prototype, right, using AI, and then go to the development team and, hey, look at this. This is basically what we want to develop, but this is basically the user story. This is the benefit that we're getting out of it. So it's kind of the same process, right? But now with AI, like a lot of the steps in between, a lot of the possible disconnections of looking at this story, they're ironed out, right? So yeah, that's it's a bit high level, but that's basically kind of how I approach being able to translate business outcomes and business objectives to technical teams.
Is there a concern, though, that what Jeevika said for creators and the data science conversation that we were having is going to bleed into what you're doing as well, and that people that just don't understand how technology works are going to get left behind?
Well, kind of, yeah. But like that's the game, isn't it? I mean,
A
if
little
you're
bit,
not
yeah.
agile enough, if you don't consider everything at your disposal, then you won't be able to really build that advantage or at least keep up with everybody else who knows how to use and maximize technology. So, but yeah, I mean, the fact that we can go as far as providing our development teams now with possible small scale prototypes so that they can understand user stories much more effectively. That's just making sure that's being responsible enough to see what technology allows you to do, and we kind of complete the picture with that, plus the additional contextual information that we can provide.
Mike, if I can hop in there, I think the other thing, if I can continue being the controversial on this panel, is to say I also think it's incumbent on business people to learn about technology. And if you think of AI as a magic wand, as a black box, that's kind of lazy. And you're not going to get the technical outcomes that you want, you're not going to be able to translate your business goals into technical outcomes with doing that. Like there needs to be, we don't need to be as business leaders know how to do it. Like it is very sophisticated, deep research to come up with these large language models example. But when you start thinking like, oh, hey, if what I'm asking for is like, I have a bunch of data and I'm just trying to make sense of all this data. We've got it. That's probably more of a machine learning problem. That's not a generative AI kind of problem. But hey, like here I'm trying to create different, possible things. And I want to workshop it. Okay, maybe this is more a non-deterministic sort of situation where generative AI will be appropriate. So like at least do a bit of work. So I think what I kind of can see a lot of times is people are getting a bit loose in their language. Like, automation is different from artificial intelligence, so we should be a little clearer about what we want. And then I think we can have some really great collaboration with technical teams to actually deliver what we want instead of just saying like, hey, can we throw AI at this, which is probably not the most productive approach to have.
So as you build out Top Road, are you seeing a bifurcation among your cohort, right? Let's just talk about the creators that you work with, that some of them just cannot get their head around some of the stuff. They're much more into just like creating the content, doing the stuff that they've been doing forever. And that the people that kind of get what you are selling, and I don't mean just the selling part of it, but like this platform that allows them to do all this data analytics, all this stuff, repackage all the things in a way that you were talking about, just makes them race ahead in a way that some of the other creators aren't. Are you seeing this bifurcation?
I'm probably not the right person to ask it just because the types of people who want to work with us are those early adopters and they are embracing AI. But I would imagine there are some people who are just like, hey, let me just put out more and more content and not thinking critically about the fact that like, hey, like by next year, something like 90% of the internet is going to be synthetically generated. Am I really adding value? Am I really do I still think I'm playing the attention economy game when I'm competing now with like literally AI influencers? Like I do think in all our different disciplines, we do need to like just understand how is our industry changing and how can I use AI to be on the right side of that change and not be left behind.
Got it. I'm just super curious to be able to try some of these tools so I can figure out, like, because I'm an early adopter for everything. I've been an early adopter my whole life. I actually had the first iPod. Like, I've had the first everything. I really did. I still have it, actually. If anybody wants to see it, it's like a museum piece. I want to ask everybody before I let you go, what does success look like for you? And Kristen, I want to start with you.
Ooh, loaded question. I think success to me is in the context of AI. I think as a leader, I want to understand the pros and cons of using AI and how I can actually embed it to the business to make things more productive. Success to me is, so right now, I'm a headhunter. I look for talents for organization. It's a very manual process.
Yeah.
So that has not changed for the past 50, 100 years.
At least.
And that's really, really backwards. It's very, very time consuming, especially on the process of trying to look for the right match for a job. I think AI should replace that part. So that's a project that I'm working on right now. So success to me is to be able to put a recruiter into everyone's pocket in the future. Whether you are looking for a job, you have an AI recruiter in your pocket, helping you to apply for a job or scouting for the right jobs for you, or whether you are hiring, you do have an AI recruiter in your pocket as well that would just surface the right candidates for you. So in a business context, that will be my success.
Got it. And how about you, Francis?
Again, it's a hard question to answer. So in our case, success is basically trust, building trust between basically the employer and the employee, as well as the employee and the employer. And AI comes in and basically it's able to make workflows with regards to HR, with regards to payroll, much more seamless, makes the experience less painful, much more enjoyable, hopefully. It provides the employee with the realization that, because of AI, or at least because of the tools that Sprout uses with their payroll, right? The agents that we were able to utilize and build. Uh, because of those things, I get my payroll accurate. I get my payroll on time. We don't have any errors or issues with my payroll. And it's very basic, but that really builds trust with the employee and the employer. Conversely, you want to build that brand for the employer, so that when a potential employee sees them, hey, these guys use Sprout, these guys understand technology, these guys understand how AI makes me as an employee better, then I'm gonna go with them because they use Sprout. So it's really kind of far when you look at it, AI and HR tools and trust, but that's kind of the very core of what we want to do, right? We want to give trust to people who get and use our products between their relationships of their HR admin, their coworkers, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that's what success looks like. Quite a high goal to aim for, but uh, Mount Everest, right? People climbed it just because it was there, and that's the same thing with us. We want to make sure that lives are impacted that way.
I might answer that both in my like a company context and then what my wish for society is. So overall, we need to always remind ourselves that AI is a tool. And if AI is not delivering value for our companies or for like the society that we want, it is within it's our responsibility and it is our privilege and our right to push back and be like, hey, this is not going in the direction we wanted to. So for my company at Top Road, what I want creators, instead of feeling disempowered. So I definitely hear from creators being like, hey, like we're kind of scared right now. Like I spend hours doing recipe development. I put that on my blog and now it's just being scraped by AI. And like, what does that mean? And I want to give them the tools to be like, hey, do you know what? I'm going to go one better. And I'm not even going to wait for the customer to find recipes on ChatGPT. I have a community of people who love food, who follow me, who trust me, and I'm going to sell my own AI-powered products, and make AI work for them and for their customers. So like that's what success looks like in AI for my content creators, to feel empowered and to make more money and have more money to be more creative, which is like fantastic, and build community. And then as a society level, what I just want for us is like, I'm Australian, so I know it's a cliche, but I want us to eventually get to a place where we get to work less and we go to the beach more. Like, let's like leave behind all the boring report writing.
I am all in on going to the beach more.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I know people think like, that seems like a pipe dream. It's not. Like, Industrial Revolution happened. It made agricultural labor less intense. The same thing. We have this moment in time with the knowledge economy to have a bit of our free time back. We shouldn't be chained to our desk, and we shouldn't be like feeling so threatened by it. We have created AI. It was human intelligence that's created it. We can figure out how to use it for good and for something so that we can live better lives.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of mass market tennis clubs or golf clubs or anything before the Industrial Revolution was completely impossible. But electricity and electrification of, like you said, cities, towns, and the countryside meant that people actually had something they never had before, which was leisure time. Like, what am I supposed to do? I need to pick something up. I need to learn how to swim. I need to learn how to surf. Like, this is one of the reasons why surfing became so big in the 60s and 70s, because people just had free time to do stuff they'd never done before. I'm going to 100% agree with you. Kristen Lim, Francis Peña, and Jeevika Makani, thank you so much for spending so much time with me today. I really appreciate all of your time. Thank you again for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.